Welcome to another episode of Dad Hammer, Bolters and Booze, where we discuss all things Warhammer while staying hydrated with an adult beverage. I am David, the Warboss, and I'm joined by the most generic Space Marine in the Imperium once again, Mr. Medicae Steve. Steve, how we doing?
Great, Dave. Just, out there doing the Emperor's work.
You sound a little tired. You sound a little rough, man. You're doing too much work, Steve.
The Emperor asks a lot of us, man. And, we got this, warp-infused allergy season going on. So, yeah, that's pretty awesome, too.
Yeah, it's killing me. It's killing my throat right now. I gotta say. But that's why it's important to stay hydrated. And that's what I'm doing right
man.
now. Well, we have a great show for you. We're going to talk once again about Warhammer 40K 10th edition. That continues to be all the rage, at least for us. I mean, there's not much rage with us dad folk around, but we're going to talk about the 10th edition rules changes that we're excited about, continue that conversation. We'll also talk about Warhammer Fest. It's coming up for those that aren't aware. It's a Warhammer Fest, Nerd Fest. It's a combination of all crazy announcements annually for Games Workshop, where they announce all the cool stuff that's coming up this weekend. So we'll talk about our hopes for what'll be revealed there and how some of those things that are talked about may change our game strategies. And obviously we're trying to predict the future here, but we'll still discuss it. And we have multiple lovely selections for our featured segment, Unnecessary Crap I Just Bought. And I've actually got a couple that I'm really excited to talk about. And I know you do as well.
Oh, yes, no shortage.
But first, the most important part of every Dad Hammer podcast is what we're drinking. Steve, what are you drinking? I am very interested to hear about this one.
So we're going with the Woodford Spire. We're going to call it the Spire Tyrant, since we're staying with the little Warhammer theme. It's more of a war cry, but hey, it'll do, man.
It's war-ish.
After a hard, long day of slaying and, killing for whatever dark god they tend to, aspire to, this is a nice, refreshing drink. So I'm going to give the proper proportions, but I tend to eyeball it like a lot of my life. So it's 1.5 ounces of bourbon, your choice, whatever you like. 1.5 ounces of cranberry juice, 2 ounces of lemonade, and 2 or more ounces of unsweetened tea. And this is optional. If you go on the Woodford site, it doesn't mention the tea, and I've had it both ways. The tea is nice, so if you're outside in the pool or whatever, you can kind of put a little more bourbon in it, and it's more of an outdoor drink then. But, man, you do you. I don't know what to tell you. But it's nice. It's a good drink.
You put too much bourbon in it and you just stay outdoors. I mean,
you may fall in the pool.
Yeah, I like this.
No, it's wonderful. It's a nice, refreshing drink.
Yeah, I like this theme. This is the second drink we've had is intentionally or unintentionally has been very summery, very outdoorsy, refreshing. I like the juice added to it. I'm not a straight bourbon guy. I usually have to add something to it to make it truly enjoyable to me. But the Spire Tyrant, I like the name too. That's pretty cool.
It's pretty sweet.
Very Warhammer theme. Well, excellent. Cheers, sir.
Cheers, man.
I am drinking, I'm from Tennessee, so I am drinking a beer tonight called Yeehaw IPA, and very appropriately named. It says a fine southern beer, but my favorite part of this is the slogan on the side of the can that says, "You'll say it when you drink it." So, yeehaw.
Is this like the Leroy Jenkins of beers?
That's exactly. And it's a pale ale. It's very good. If you like IPA, it's very citrusy, made in Nashville. And I've had Yeehaw beers before, and the Yeehaw IPA is really good. So, and the can comes in the black and white, kind of the whole Johnny Cash thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is very on brand. So yeah, I'm very much enjoying it. So you enjoy your Spire Tyrant. I shall enjoy my delicious Yeehaw beer. And
Bottoms up.
bottoms up. Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, man.
Well, let's get into some news here. The continuation of 10th edition is, front and center in our minds. And we covered several things last episode, but this recent one, I wanted to talk a little bit more about vehicles, specifically tanks. They came out with this article on Warcom, and I don't really have a ton of tanks. I do play Space Wolves. That's my only Space Marine chapter that I have. And, Space Wolves they're very melee heavy. We've got, the actual wolves, and we've got a dreadnought or two, and that's really cool. But I never really took a tank or any kind of real transport. But now that I've seen some of these rules, and, one of the things that's come out here is that the toughness on all tanks and vehicles in general, but tanks specifically, the toughness is going up. I mean, very, very high, up into, I saw one where the Stompa goes up to, I think, toughness 14. The Ork Stompa. Now, the Ork Stompa is still, the gigantic grandma. That's what it looks like. It's like a grandma, an orc grandma in a skirt.
Granny hugs.
Oh, man. I love the orcs. They're my first army, but I just can't. They gotta redo that model. It's only $100, from what I've seen, but man, I can't bring myself, even with all of the Forge World stuff where you can add cool weapons and everything to make it look more orky, I guess. Yeah. It still looks like a grandma.
It's hard. It looks like the syrup bottle.
Oh, see, that's not cool, man. Like, now I can't get that out of my head.
I know. I didn't mean to hurt you like that, but it does. It's kind of.
Well, I'm not going to buy it,
Mrs. Buttersworth.
Oh, jeez. Now, as much as they're really trying hard to go after the Ork Stompa with their 14 toughness, unless they redo the model, I will not be putting that on the table. However,
that checks out.
Yeah. However, they do have. They started talking about the different gladiators, the repulsor, the rhinos, and so, Steve, what are your thoughts on some of these tanks and the toughness going up really high?
So, I really like it. I mean, like we touched on the last time, my army doesn't use a lot of tanks necessarily. In older Dark Angels lore, and I don't know if it's still canon or not, they used to have 6 wings, and one of them, and don't ask me to give you the name because I can't remember right off, but their whole deal was roll in with heavy armor kind of stuff. So, the Death Wing, which are Terminators, and the Raven Wing, which are bikes and speeders, but there was a whole nother one of 6 wings that just dealt with armor, and that was pretty cool. So I don't know, maybe they'll bring that back with some of the new Dark Angel lore.
Yeah.
It'll make it really interesting to play those. And man, I do like tanks. I never gave them a second thought until now. And I think it's pretty cool.
To me, they've never been that appealing. They look super cool on the tabletop. And I'm looking at the article here with the pictures, and of course, they're throwing more of the crater terrain in there, which looks just all. I mean, I'm a sucker for terrain, and I'm glad that they're actually bringing back what looks to be, anyway, from the picture, more of the crater terrain officially from GW. So I'm excited about that. But the thing with tanks is that you put a bunch of your infantry guys in there and you cart them up the field, but I was always worried about the tank blowing up because the toughness and the defense on it, especially after you take a few wounds, it gets worse. And now they are essentially, they're kind of removing that. They don't degrade. There'll just be a couple of penalties to their hit rolls, but it's not as, you don't slow down.
Right.
And I'm a little back and forth on that because I'm thinking if you're in a tank and half of it is severely damaged, are you going to be rolling at the same speed? I guess potentially,
but I think you should have to. I didn't mind the slowdown mechanic very much.
Yeah, I didn't mind the mechanic. What I did mind was having to refer back to a table again.
Yeah, because you forget.
Well, yeah, and we're old and we forget just about everything that comes
Because
out.
the dreadnoughts are like that. Like the big dreadnought I have, and after you get a certain number of wounds, they can only move so much, and yeah, and then I think I could forget every time we've played it.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm excited for tanks to come back. I'm still very interested to hear more about how that's actually going to play. We haven't, still learned a lot about all of the nuance, which is where 40K really, any of the Warhammer games, but 40K specifically, where it really comes alive is all the nuance and movement and the strategic element to that. So I'm interested to hear more. But anytime they post these pictures up here, I always get excited and start thinking about, oh man, I need to buy all this stuff. So that's going to be a problem.
It's going to be interesting though, because I mean, they're obviously pushing the Space Marine stuff right now because that's their poster boy, right? But I mean, Votann, they have some pretty mean machines already. I would be interested to see what that does to like that. What is the Hecaton Land Raider? Is that
Land
right?
Fortress. Let's get it right.
Fortress. Oh, sorry. That's a judgment token right there.
You get at least 4 judgment tokens, and now I don't even have to roll. I just automatically hit and wound. And I saw an article, not to tangent too much. I saw an article the other day or a video. I think it was an Auspex Tactics, and the title of the video is that which army do you hate playing against?
Oh, really?
And they had a picture of the Votann on there along with a couple others. And I just thought, I don't mind being the army that everyone doesn't like to play against.
That's not such a bad thing.
Yeah, but maybe that's just because I don't mind being annoying to other people. But
man, if that ruins your game because you don't like the army you're playing against,
yeah,
I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I don't like playing against Thousand Sons because of all the psychic abilities. But
okay,
now that is changing, of course, because previously you just sit there and they're the psychic phase, and whether I'm an orc player or not, I'm sitting there and I do my one little magic spell, and then I just put my dice away and I just wait,
Yeah.
But when the Thousand Sons, one of our friends comes up and starts rolling all of his dice and his umpteen psychic powers. I've been glad that's changing, but that was always an annoying army to play against. I mean, to each their own, of course.
Yeah, true.
Well, anyway, we'll have to see more about the tanks and vehicles. I'm looking forward to it, and we will learn more, I'm sure, in the near future. Let's switch over now to the other topic around 10th edition. Is something that I think is, well, I think it's been in a previous edition, and that is the fact that leaders or characters are now really important, and we even got the epic heroes, and I think they're trying to now attach those leaders and the named characters to units where you're not just a lone guy out in the middle of the battlefield, hovering around a unit. You're now kind of attached to those troop units. I'm really glad they did that, and I'm interested to see what kind of mechanic and how that's going to play out on the tabletop. To me, when you've got a captain or even a warboss, as it were, with orcs, I always like the idea of them being attached to a group of orc boys, for example. A large band of orc boys, and he's leading them into battle. But in 9th edition, 8th edition, thematically, you didn't really get any kind of... It was cool, but you didn't get any game buffs to it.
Right.
Maybe a couple, but he never felt like part of the unit. So, are you thinking about maybe with your Dark Angels, how that's going to play out with some of the named characters along with your units?
Definitely. I've been very guilty of not using my HQ units to their fullest potential. I tend to get locked on this guy is like a beast in melee, or he has excellent shooting skills, or exceptionally lethal, and I forget that he's supposed to be leading the other units. So there are they have a lot of actual pretty good buffs in the Dark Angels codex and stuff for all these leaders and things, but I forget to use them because I end up letting him kind of wander off on his own and, use him as a big hammer and not stick him with the unit that he's supposed to help. And, at least in ninth, I feel like your regular run of the mill infantry Space Marine, they're not, and they have 2 wounds, but they're not incredibly durable. I feel like they die faster than I thought they would. But if you're not really helping them out with those re-rolls and invulnerable saves, because, the whole inner circle stuff, they got great invulnerable saves and all kinds of things that kind of help that issue. And Raven Wing have, very good shooting buffs if your leader is with it. But if you just kind of roll them out because you're like, wow, this guy's just really tough, I'm going to just punch my opponent in the face with it, then you lose them, they die, and now your regular infantry guys are just kind of hanging out like,
Right.
what do we do now?
Or worse, and what I've done a lot is, usually through poor army selection or poor deployment, where I will take usually my psyker or one of my leaders. When I play Votann, it's usually the high call or the Grimnir, and I have good intentions of keeping them with the troops, but I ended up just saying, well, I'm just going to park them on this objective because I didn't take the right units to hold the objectives, and that's my fault. But I still like the idea that there is now a reason to attach these leaders to another squad, and I'm looking at the rules here, the actual card on the website, and it says you can attach this model to one of the above units, and this is for the Primaris Lieutenant as a leader. You can attach this model to one of the above units even if one captain or chapter master model has already been attached to it. If you do, and that bodyguard unit is destroyed, the leader units attached to it become separate units with their original starting strengths. Well, I mean, we're going to have to see how that plays, but
Yeah,
I just like the idea of it being themed, that you
I do
can
too.
group up a couple of guys and say, all right, fellas, let's roll out into the battlefield now as a team, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and early on with the whole you'll look out sir rule, you would end up keeping your leader behind units.
Which is not leading.
Which is not leading. And it made it kind of hard to know what to do with them. Because you wanted to keep them behind a unit so a sniper couldn't take them out, say, or some lucky shot, and which is great. But man, most of them have excellent melee skills. So you got a whole unit of 5 or 10 or whatever you're running.
You're leaving them behind. Yeah,
it's hard to get them in combat. And Space Marines with a 6-inch move, and then if they're in heavier armor, it's only 5. I mean, it makes it even tougher. I don't know. I like it. I think it's going to force people to tailor their lists a little bit better, and it's just going to look. I don't know. It's just going to feel like it looks cooler on the board,
Yeah, and we play more of a narrative type. I mean, we're competitive in our inner circle, not competitive in tournaments, but we're competitive enough. But we like to have a narrative around why we're playing, why these two armies are facing off, and even if it's something generic. But to your point, you talked about the lookout sir rule. That's something that I appreciate. I know why it was there.
Right.
But I'm reading here, and I'm glad it's being devolved. So it says, into this new system, your leader is kept safe by their bodyguards and can usually be targeted only when everyone else in the squad has breathed their last, which makes more sense. So you would have them attached, because really, if you had a squad of intercessors or assault intercessors, for example, and you had your main guy, your captain, I think that's right. I don't know if I'm saying the right words, but the guy with the red helmet, is that a captain? I think so.
I don't know. Maybe maybe the red helmets are sergeants. Maybe the striped helmets are.
We'll go with that.
I don't know.
The guy with the red helmet, he's the one that you would remove at the very end. Which,
Right.
you know, and if that applies to your main character unit, it's going to be the same type of thing. So now you've got a real game mechanic around it, and in addition to that, they're saying as well that if that squad is destroyed, for example, and you've still got that leader unit there, they become a lone operative, which is an ability, and it says which means they can't be targeted by ranged attacks unless the attacker is within 12 inches. So now you're giving the buffs to the squad, and so now your opponent will be going after the squad, take them out, and now it's going to create this thematic, you know, battle at the end where you got to get close to the leader in order to take him out. So I think that's just going to really create some really cool scenarios on the battlefield tabletop where we're having to get really close, you know, at the very end after you've taken out all the troops.
I agree. It's going to make you think about where you put your units, and it's going to be I don't know, completely different than the way we play now, but it's going to change a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, I read all this stuff, and I always get excited. I got excited about 9th edition, you know, and then when it came out and we started playing, it was still very exciting, but it was very complicated still. So
Right.
I am hoping that I'm trying to temper my expectations a little bit, but I am hoping that things will be a little more streamlined this time around. But you know, ultimately, we shall see. More from 10th edition and more news very soon, and we'll cover it more on this podcast in the future.
Sounds great.
All right, so we'll pivot over now to some more talks about 10th edition, but in the form of the Warhammer Fest event that's coming up this weekend, 2 days actually. And
that's exciting.
very exciting. I looking at the previews and things that are going down. So on Saturday, they're going to start out with Warhammer 40K, and I have heard that they're going to do that they're going to do demos of the new 10th edition for the people that are attending. So I am assuming that we'll get all kinds of write-ups and footage and opinions from people that have been playing, and hopefully some more news and reveals on Saturday morning. So is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to, that you're hoping for to see? I mean, what would just make your day? You wake up on Saturday morning and you check your feed, the news, and you see X. Like what would it that would just be great for Saturday for you?
Entire 10th edition rules. No.
Oh, just everything? Oh, just surprise. We're dropping it this Saturday.
No. I mean, that would be cool, but I don't think they're that crazy.
Yeah, probably not.
You know, I'm interested to see what's going to actually be in that box set. I'm not going to buy it. At least I'm saying that now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, half of it I just am not interested in.
Yeah.
Well,
that you know of.
Yeah, that's true. I think what I hope is maybe get a little info that, I don't know, I feel like in the 9th edition launchbox, there were things that you still could not hardly buy, even after the box was, you know, launched and done, and we were 2 years into 9th edition. I feel like there was a few. Can you even buy a Scorpec Lord?
Yeah, that's a good question. On
eBay?
I don't think so. Yeah.
So I would be tickled if they tell us like everything in the box will be individually available if you want it. Maybe not immediately.
There's no way. There's no way they would do that because they want you to buy the box, right?
Well, that's true. That's true. Because I just don't need it. Oh, well. All right, that's a lie.
This is not about need, right? None of this entire hobby is defined by, you know, really we could just caption it with say, you don't need this at all. There is no justification for it. You can use this money to buy groceries and to support those in need. You don't need this.
This
but, you know, if you want to buy it, here it is, and we're only going to make it in limited quantities, and we're going to sell it in this gigantic box that you don't want.
Yeah.
Okay. Sold.
You're
Take my
not
money.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just excited to see it. So one of the things I remember about getting into Warhammer, like my friend that kind of got me into it was like, hey, just go on YouTube and watch Astartes. I was like, all right. I didn't really know much about it. And man, it's still like, now that's nostalgic, and that's kind of weird to say. But when, the last Warhammer Fest was all about Kill Team mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when that launch trailer for Octarius came out, I was just like, man, I could watch that over and over and over. So I sat through, just excited about Warhammer Fest because I was like, I got to know more about this now because Kill Team's new, a new set of rules. Because I had the previous core book, but just never really messed with it a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I have that same kind of build up and feeling. I'm like, I'm not looking for one thing in particular, but I'm just excited to see it.
Yeah, I think that's generally whenever they do a reveal. I remember back when I first started getting into Warhammer, and they would have these previews or events, and they would show off, all the new stuff coming up. And I was always really excited about it, but half the time it would be for a game or something or an army. When I was first starting out, I only had one army. I had like 2 boxes of guys, and they would show off Age of Sigmar stuff or Kill Team or Warcry or here's the new models for Chaos Space Marines. And I just remember thinking, I don't care about any of this stuff because I don't own any of those armies. So this is the most boring thing ever. Well, now, and I couldn't understand why people were getting so hyped about it. Well, now that I've got, I think I've got 5 armies now. I've got Kill Team. I've got Terrain. I've read some of the books. I play the video games. I'm watching the Warhammer Plus series. And now just about everything, and I'm looking down the previews here, the schedule, just about everything. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to be at that place, I think. Cool and sad at the same time because I know that I've invested a whole lot of money into this plastic toy soldier hobby that we have.
Yeah, but you know more about the hobby too, and that's true. Exciting.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I'm not dogging on my own hobby that I fully enjoy, and we're creating a podcast about, obviously. But it's given me a lot of enjoyment. The painting and the modeling is very therapeutic, and getting together and playing games and having a good time is worth it. So just like any other type of nerd hobby, whether Dungeons and Dragons or video games or whatever you're into, there's always an element there that is therapy for you, and it's just something that we can enjoy together, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Get that little serotonin bump.
There you go. Yeah, that's what we'll call it. This is a medical thing.
It is.
This is mental health.
It's the happy hormone.
Yeah, there we go. Well, the next, speaking of additional happiness, and we'll continue to get the serotonin bump, the rest of the day, Saturday, we're talking Warhammer Underworlds, Warcry, and then Middle Earth strategy game, whether it be the Lord of the Rings stuff. Okay. I never really got into Underworlds. I prefer the larger scale game, but I know you are into Warcry, even though I think you've only played maybe a couple of games, but you have a whole lot of Warcry stuff.
Yeah. I have one of the box sets. It's the Red Harvest one. So it was, I guess it's the one right before the newest. Oh no, there's 2 new ones. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I forget which one came out. The recent one was the one with the little Seraphon, the lizard guys, and I think the one before that was the one where they introduced that sort of swampy looking terrain.
Yeah. Oh yeah, with the trees and stuff and the bridges and things. Yeah, I got really excited about the terrain, but again, I've never actually played the Warcry game. It's very interesting. But time is the biggest commodity right now, where it's like, oh my gosh, we gotta we have it seems like we have a ton of time, and then we just don't. After
And you,
after all
yeah,
said
and
and
you have
done.
to pick your battles.
Yeah. Um, so Warcry, probably some new war bands there, maybe some new terrain, which I could use for other games, most likely.
Yeah.
Um, the Middle Earth stuff, I never really, I'm a big Lord of the Rings guy. I'm excited about whenever I get to see Lord of the Rings content, but
Mhm.
I'm not really big into the miniatures. I do like the new terrain that they're coming out with, so that's cool for Age of Sigmar. Actually, I was thinking about putting that on the, getting some of the ruins that they have. They had,
Yeah. I saw the big head, the big statue
yeah,
head. I
yeah.
think that's the Forge World one, so
No,
kind of
okay. Well, that'll
shaky
be
on that.
$9,000 for the
Yeah. And
for
still
the head.
old
Yeah,
crumbly resin.
yeah. Well, I mean that could be cool there. And then the rest of Warhammer Fest looks like on Sunday they're going to Age of Sigmar,
Oh,
Horus
cool.
Heresy. I'm not I'm not too big into, and then the Warhammer Old World stuff, which is just going to be yet another game for me to wants to purchase and then likely not. But I'm mostly excited. I mean, Age of Sigmar will be some cool stuff, and we'll talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
some Age of Sigmar content here in a little bit. But I think the focus, the elephant in the room is 40K 10th edition. That's going to be the big one, and I think that's why they're starting off day one with all of that. So
Yeah, that's like the best, the best commercials in the Super Bowl are in the first half.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I usually don't. I mean, anymore, I just wait till the commercials all show up on YouTube the following day, and I'm just watching them
True.
then. The next day, I'm like, whatever, I'll skip over all this stuff.
Yeah,
But
it's a big deal for a new edition. I mean, that's just
yeah,
exciting.
yeah, and they've got the countdown showing up on the website, and there's hype.
It,
I'm
it's
excited.
it's good, man. That's brilliant marketing. Not a lot of things are kind of doing that.
Yeah, agreed. Well, we'll have to see, and we'll probably record another podcast shortly after Warhammer Fest, so we can do some reactions there, talk about anything that is mind blowing. New models, new box sets, new announcements, hopefully some new rules, and
Hmm.
we'll hold out, Steve. Maybe they'll come out with just the surprise, the full rules dump, and we were just kidding. We're not going to wait, and here it is. Um, I'll let you take that bet, but I will
Yeah,
not.
yeah, that's kind of a sucker bet. I don't know,
Yeah.
man.
Well, I'm excited. We'll see.
Yep.
All right, so let's move now into one of our featured segments, and actually one of my favorite because we get to really banter about things, is the unnecessary crap I just bought,
Yeah.
which seems to be a recurring theme for us on a weekly basis, but this is a good opportunity for us to talk through it now. And I know you recently made a trip to our local game store, and I got a text message from you with a picture, and I'm like, oh. Well, that happened. So tell us about what you got, Steve.
So I walked in, and I too have become a sucker for terrain, and I don't necessarily have a lot to fill up a full board necessarily. I could, but it's going to be a little sparse. But some of it's really expensive, as we've discussed before.
Yeah.
So it gets kind of difficult. I'm like, man, do I really need? Oh well, there's a need word. Do I really want to spend $80 on a little solo piece of terrain? And it's sometimes a little harder for me to talk myself into it. But he started carrying this line. It's made by a company called Pegasus, which I think they're a model company that's been around for a really long time. But they're doing this fantasy and sci-fi terrain. It's pretty. A lot of it's modular, so that's kind of useful. I don't
Oh,
know if
nice.
I don't know. I looked at the box. I don't know how really modular it is. It's probably going to get glued together.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was very, very close to GW's terrain, at least in aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
What did I get? This is kind of like a frontier platform kind of piece, so you can do multi levels with ramps, which I'm looking forward to because I think that'll fit in to some of the other terrain that I have. It looks
Will
sort
that
of
fit a
like
tank, or is it just infantry?
just infantry and
Oh, okay. I was just envisioning, the tank going up the ramp.
oh, nah, it's more of a I don't I don't know what you would call it.
Like
Maybe
a
like a watchtower or just sort of
okay,
a
okay.
yeah, kind of something along those lines. But I think honestly, looking at it, it's probably scaled more to like 28 millimeter, which
Okay.
our normal 40K stuff is 32. $35. That
That's a
was
pretty good, yeah. But I mean, if
it's
it's good
worth
looking
trying.
terrain and if it's modular, even if it's, not necessarily that
Hmm.
close, less expensive than the official stuff for sure.
Yeah, and it'll be useful, you know.
Cool.
And it's not the and I do not like the MDF train. I just
Yeah,
beside it, I've looked
I-
at it, but I'm like
I'm
I
not a
can't
fan
do that.
either. I don't know. It almost looks like it looks a little too Hobby Lobby for me. you know, like I did it
Yeah.
for my fifth grade art project, and
Hmm.
I made a World War II ruined building out of cardboard, and
Right.
not to disparage, I'm sure someone likes it, but to me it's just like, I mean, if that's what you want to do, and that's the way you want to roll, more power to you.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I think I'll just save up for the official GW terrain.
It needs the texture and the little details.
Agreed.
It helps.
Well, cool. So when can we expect to see said new terrain? Or is it still in the shrink wrap on a shelf?
No, I took the shrink wrap off. I did
Hey,
open the box to look at it.
there we go.
Uh,
Wow,
um,
that's step one and two.
it's close, but you know me and my backlog, man.
Okay, pile of
Who knows?
potential.
Oh, I go in spurts too. Sometimes I'll be like, I can't paint another Space Marine, you know?
Yeah, I feel
So
you.
I'm like, I'll shift gears and go to some terrain or something like that.
So is this adding to the pile of potential, or has the pile grown into a shelf, which is now grown into a closet, which is now grown into a side of the house? Where are we in the um, admitting that you have a problem?
I'm almost at reality TV level because it's
You're a
got a little,
hoarder.
you got a little stuff here, a little stuff there.
Yeah,
There's really no super duper organization system. It's all hidden away, so at least I
perfect.
don't have to stare
Wife
at it.
approved.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go with that. A reoccurring theme. I trust you, Steve. It's
Yeah,
okay.
right, right.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with that. I am anxious to
Hmm.
see completed terrain, and I'm still envisioning the ramp. I want to, I'll buy some new tank with these new rules and make up my own house rules where my Hecaton land fortress can, go off the ramp, Dukes of Hazzard style, and just, ramp up over and crush. I like these rules that I'm making up right now,
Yeah,
by the way.
or just knock it down and kill everybody in it.
Yeah, yeah, perfect.
I mean, let's go for it.
Don't worry, the Stompa with its 14 toughness will just go crush it, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
leave
and look great doing it, no doubt.
a slick trail of Mrs. Buttersworth syrup all
Okay,
over the board.
okay, okay. All right, that's too soon. All right, well, good luck with that.
Mm,
All right, I
thank
will
you.
move over now. Unnecessary crap that I recently purchased from Australia. So it's going to be good. I actually got on Etsy, and now that I've got multiple armies, I have lots of dice, and I am a sucker for the themed dice that they release. And I was talking to the local Games Workshop store owner, and he was just saying that they only do limited runs of these dice, and then once they're gone, they're gone. And I didn't believe him until then I would try to go and find the said dice that they released for an army a couple of months ago, and now it's on eBay for 3 times the markup, and I'm not doing that. So anyway, so I've started buying dice. Well, now I have a problem where I've got all these dice and I'm keeping them in Ziploc bags. So I have these armies that I have spent hundreds, potentially thousands, I guess at this point, hours painting and on a shelf, and it's all nice looking, and all this work, and then right next to him is a Ziploc bag full of dice. And I just thought, okay, time for some unnecessary purchases. And I purchased themed dice bags with the logo of the army of choice there. So I got one for Votann, of course. So it has the Votann symbol on the front, which is a really cool logo by itself. I think it's really cool. And then, and I'll put the link to this along with I think if there's a link for the terrain that you purchased and it's not local, we'll put that in the description. But the dice bag that I have for Votann, I bought one for Orks, so it's got the orc symbol, and it's the bright green orc, and then the one for Votann was a more of a blue, I guess I don't know what you call it, or teal color kind of thing. And then I have one for Chaos as well, and it's got the Chaos symbol on it. So now I've got these dice bags with the logos on them, and I can put all my dice in there, and they sit next there. And it was kind of an impulse buy, and off of Etsy, and now I have these dice bags. So yay me, But they hold all the dice. Yeah, they hold all the dice. Yeah, I got one for you as well for Dark Angels. Yeah. And they hold all the dice and all the judgment tokens as well. So, plenty of judgment. And now you just can't see the judgment. You have to wait until the judgment comes out. And how dare you play the game and perform actions? Here's a judgment token. Now it comes out of a pretty dice bag. So it's like it's like a Christmas time. It's a present. Yeah, it's a gift. Yeah. So you'll see those on the tabletop soon, I am sure. And then I got one more thing I guess it's more of a segment here, but the unnecessary crap I bought. I purchased 3 different items from the Citadel official tool line. One of them I've had for a little while, but I have it right next to it. The first one is the Citadel official name is a water pot, and I just call it the paint cup. It's the plastic gray thing from Citadel that you put your water in, and yes, you could use any kind of kitchen cup or plastic cup or something, but this thing is actually kind of nice. I mean, I don't really clean it out, so it looks pretty gross looking at it right now, but it's a sturdy cup. It just holds water, but it's not going to tip over. It's wider at the base. I actually do recommend it. Whenever someone new to the hobby comes up and says, what kind of stuff do I need to buy? There's tons of accessories with any hobby, but I would say the water pot, as if you will, is actually kind of worth it.
I agree, man. I have one. I won it in like a little random draw over at Blackthorn on one of these game days. Yeah. And I thought, oh, well, that's cute. I don't know about that. Because I thought for a long time, I was like, I would never buy that for myself.
Yeah, waste of money, right?
I don't know. It's the perfect size, first of all.
Yep.
Because it doesn't take up a bunch of room. And I know it sounds crazy, but those little texture bits that are molded into it.
The grooves and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you have nice paintbrushes that you're trying to take care of. Because I have a few sable brushes, and I'm really careful about how I clean them and stuff. And it's really good for it. And it's got the little indents on the top. You can lay the brush across and
it's quality of life. I would say. I mean, if you're gonna spend hours and hours and on this hobby, there's little things that just add. You just have it next to you, like, yeah, this is actually kind of worth it. Yes, you could get by with less, of course, but this is why it's unnecessary. You don't need this, but it is nice. It adds a little something extra to it. So, I've never tipped it over. We'll say that.
Nope, not yet.
So that's a good sign. Now, I can't say the same thing about the pots of paint. Those have been tipped over multiple times. So that's a different story.
True.
And then I've got 2 other tools here. One is these are the newer versions of the tools from Citadel. I have the mold line remover, which I was just using X-Acto knife before for the mold lines. And, purists will probably cringe at hearing that, but I never really cared. I just wanted to get the mold lines off, and yeah, I would take some chunks out of the model, but I always just called that battle damage and moved on. But
Yeah.
you know, I've always used an X-Acto knife for it, and it did the job. But I took a chance. I got this mold line remover, and I gotta say, it's pretty nice. It's hard to get to some of the chunkier bits on the sprue.
Okay.
That really you just need to get in with the snippers or actually take the X-Acto knife to it. But I'd say in general, the mold line remover is just a plastic file looking thing, but you can really kind of it's very sturdy, so you can put a lot of pressure on it to scrape the mold lines off, and I never feel like I'm going to break it. I think that was the big thing for me, is I was really concerned, you know, am I going to snap this thing in two or something, or with an X-Acto knife, am I going to, completely lacerate all of my fingers in the process of trying to clean up a model. But no, this thing was $25, so it's not cheap for a little stick that you use to scrape off plastic. But would I say it's worth it? For me, yes, because it's just nice to have. I'm also sometimes a loyalist where I buy the products and a company puts out.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
But I don't know. I like it. Is it worth $25? That's a little steep, I think, but I think it's close enough if you're looking for something to enhance your hobby part of the equation. I think it's worth it. 25 is still a lot, so if you're tight on cash, maybe not, just go buy the X-Acto knife, but just be wary of your fingers.
If you have kids or, younger hobbyists in your house that are learning and want to do it, that's a great tool. They're not going to cut themselves.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. I have children. I haven't even thought about that.
Yeah. But I mean, I have X-Acto, but I use the back of my the non-sharp side of the X-Acto blade to do more or less what the mold line thing does. But I have that starter paint set. I don't know. They were selling it, and I was like, that's got a good mix of paints. But it has the metal part, I think, of what you're talking about. It's not the new version, but it's just the metal. So it's not very useful because it's kind of hard to hold. It doesn't have a handle. So it's weird. But the way the edges are, it's very, I don't want to call it milled, but the corners, while not being sharp, they're exactly sharp and fine enough to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
For its purpose.
And the other thing this mold line, you mentioned, I've only used it a couple times, but the other thing this mold line remover has is a little notch on the end of it, which looks a little weird, but you're supposed to use it to scrape around the bases of the models, so like the circle part, so you could just run that around, scrape it off. I've used it when I put the technical paint, like the gravel stuff, the different types of technical paint on there when it dries, and maybe some of it overlaps the rim of the base, and I've used that remover to scrape all that stuff off really easily. So, that's cool. I like it. I'm pleased with the purchase, even though it was a little pricey, but I do recommend it.
That's cool.
One last tool is the super fine detail cutters. Very lengthy. They're just the snippers, the sprue cutters. I got these. I had purchased the cheapo ones originally from, I think I got them from Walmart or a hobby store. Just they were like the floral cutters.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are fine. They worked fine, but because I saw super fine detail cutters, I thought, okay, I've been in this hobby now for multiple years. I might as well. And I will say that they definitely have a premium feel over my cheap plastic floral cutters that I think were like $10 at most. Because this thing I think is, I want to say $45.
Okay.
So it's I don't know if I would recommend these. They have a premium feel. They let you get into the little nooks and crannies of the sprue and all that kind of stuff. But is it worth $45? I think if you're getting started out and you're just starting on the hobby, no, you don't need these. If you've been doing it for a long time and you're maybe looking to upgrade, this is a decent upgrade if you don't mind dropping the cash on it. So I would give this one a, maybe.
Yeah.
This is definitely in the unnecessary crap realm for sure.
Well, if you get very persnickety about your painting and your finish, getting something sharp like those and the mold line remover, prepping the model goes a long way as to how good your paint job may end up looking.
True.
So, it's all up to the buyer. It's cool.
Yeah. This definitely won't make you a better painter.
No.
But I've been using it for forever, and it hasn't made me a better painter. But it does make me feel like I don't know. I guess it's that feeling of, okay, I've got all the right tools. Now I just have to somehow obtain the talent. But I have all the right tools, like the Ghostbusters. Right? You got the tools, and now you just got to hopefully come up with the talent.
Sometimes there is something to be said about the old buy once, cry once, though. And if they're expensive, but they look like they're going to last forever, and you only have to deal with it one time, then that's not a loss, really.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I like these. I'm happy with my purchases for the most part, and although very unnecessary, still worth a look if you're interested. Okay, let's now, for our final segment, we'll get into our hobby corner, and I am very excited because I know that you've been hard at work on a project. So let's talk about, Steve, what have you recently finished that is, I guess, no longer part of your pile of potential?
Yeah, so I had several things that a lot of them were just assembled and primed, and they'd been sitting around, and I was working on kill teams and sort of procrastinating and didn't get those finished. And I just decided I'm going to sit down and I'm going to plow through all this was after the boarding actions terrain. So I had all these primed figures, and it ended up being close to 700 points of figures, which was pretty ridiculous when you look at it. So I did 5 infiltrators. I did
for which army is this?
Dark Angels.
Okay, Dark Angels.
So 5 Space Marine infiltrators. I did 5 Terminators that I had printed. Had a file, and which was funny because I just actually printed them just to see how they worked out. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to do a decent job on painting these, and I was really happy with how they turned out.
Nice.
I had a squad of 3 Eliminators. I had 2 Outrider bikes to finish, and a Primaris Chaplain on a bike. I had a Gravis Captain to finish up.
And when you say finish, you're talking full detail, ready for the table, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
These are all ready for the table.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because sometimes when I say, okay, I'm finished, when really that's just, I got 2 coats of paint.
No, these are based and the rims are painted.
Awesome.
I mean, they are done unless I want to go back and do some other, Uber highlighting and go crazy with it. Oh,
give them a glow up.
Yeah, which, I always leave a little room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
And 3 suppressors, which I don't know how they play, but they look a little goofy / cool at the same time. I actually really like them.
Well, they're definitely not. The rules are about to change completely, of course. So, I don't know. What would be interesting to see how they play in 10th, of course. But wow, still, that's a pretty big accomplishment. 700 points of anything is quite a bit.
The Invader ATV too.
Oh, wow.
I'm not quite done with it. I'm almost done. So I'm not completely honest. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It's not a great model. It's kind of goofy, but it's basically a land speeder on wheels as far as, stats and stuff go, with a huge multi-melt on it. So that's cool. I'm okay with that.
I was just thinking, I was hearing you talking about the 700 points and just the completion. I got this done, I got that done. this is one of the few hobbies, I think, and I know people that have gotten to this stage with the hobby and done a lot. There's few things that are satisfying as finishing a model and saying, a unit, if it's a character or something, that's one thing, or a big tank or whatever. But finishing a model, putting it down or putting it on your shelf and saying, this looks good, I'm done. Like, man, it's such a good feeling. And usually, in the evenings when we've got jobs and we do our thing with family, and then when we step aside to work on our hobby, I always feel like I accomplished something. It's that, man, I built this, I made this, I painted this, and it's not just going to sit on a shelf forever, unless it's a terrible in the game. But it's not going to sit on the shelf forever. I'm going to pull it off the shelf, stick it on the table, and it might get blown up first turn, but that's okay, man. It sure looked cool while I was doing it.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your 700 points. I cannot wait to snipe them off the board.
Yeah. Well, I stepped outside of my comfort zone just a little bit and tried something that I've been, on my mind with those, camo cloaks.
Yeah.
The Eliminators. I was pretty proud of how that turned out.
Those look super cool, man. Like I know we don't have. We'll have to put some pictures up soon.
Yeah.
But the I don't know what do you describe that kind of effect? Like that digital camo kind of like technical warpy effect.
Yeah, changing like. Gosh, I'm like you. I'm like sort of tongue tied. I don't really lost for
like
words.
A wave. I don't know the correct material. Yeah, I don't know the correct sci-fi term for it, but it's like a wave of digital.
That's what I'm looking for.
Active. Okay, that makes us sound a lot smarter. Yeah. We'll just say that. Of course, active camouflage.
And
thank you for correcting.
I languished over how to do it for a long time, and then I just went for it. I was like, oh, well, that was way easier than I thought it would be.
It looks cool, man. I mean, it definitely makes them. It makes the models pop for sure when they're on the table.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, congrats. Well,
Thanks,
speaking
man.
of paint, I know you got one more thing as we're wrapping up the show here, but you got involved with a Kickstarter.
I did.
Regarding some paint. Tell us about the Kickstarter.
So it's I started following these guys, I think, on Instagram. They're the Grimdark Compendium, and so they are way deep into the Grimdark sort of style of painting. Maybe a little bit more than I want to like go down, because it's a commitment, but they look great. They're very dark. It's very much like some of the more fan artwork or some of the old John Blanchy style original artwork from some of the old books. But he's putting out, so I started experimenting with oil washes myself, just buying oil paint, thinning it down with thinner, putting it on over the acrylic paint, and it just like really sucks into the cracks and crevices, but it gives you a lot of time to work with it. So you can use makeup applicators or whatever with a little bit of white spirit on it, and you can wipe it right off. So you can temper it to what look you want. So you can take as much grit and grind look off that you want, or you can leave as much on as you want. So it's really forgiving. It sounds really scary because you're like, should I put this over my acrylic paint? But it doesn't hurt the acrylic paint. It's pretty cool.
Wow, that's cool. What's the Kickstarter again?
So the Kickstarter is Villainy Inks. So the guy that's got this page. So he is making pre-made enamel washes / oil washes for this exact same purpose. So you would paint them on, and then you have time to work because they have a slow dry time. You can kind of wipe them off, or you can let it dry, and then you can take mineral spirits on a Q-tip, makeup applicator, or an old brush, and then remove it as you want, so you can get the exact effect that you want.
Nice.
Or you can just touch it to all your panel lines and crevices, and it just capillary action just sucks right in. So you know how acrylic washes, they're not terribly forgiving. I mean, when you put them on, you have such a short work time. So this kind of,
because they pool or streak or whatever,
and they start drying immediately.
Yep.
And you can't take them off without taking the acrylic paint underneath it off, because they're the same, thinner / medium, whatever you want to call it. So these being a different medium give you a lot more versatility to work. So he was offering this. It was a $30 Kickstarter. He wanted to hit his, and for $30 I get 3 very usable colors. I think sort of a brown, a black, and I think this and a rust color. So nice. With that $30 Kickstarter, I'm promised 3 30 ml bottles of this stuff. So as it's cheap, and I can stretch a dime as far as anybody. So these will last me for quite some time,
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited about seeing. They probably won't be here till like October or something like that, but they'll be mixed in a ratio of someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. It'll be really cool.
And the one of the best things about, the Kickstarters are always a little bit of a gamble, right? Because you don't know if they're actually going to go through. But for the Kickstarters that I have done, one of the best things about them is that you forget that you funded a Kickstarter, and then it's like 6 months later you get a box in the mail, like, what in the heck is this? And then you open it up, like, oh yeah,
that's right.
I forgot about that. I made that investment. Don't worry about it. It's almost like you put it on layaway. That's kind of what it feels like. Well, cool.
He hit his initial mark so fast that he started doing. I don't really understand, because I'm pretty new to that, but there were like stretch goals.
Yeah, a lot of stretch goals.
He was going to add more colors, and he's blown past all expectations to the point where he's considering talking about the next milestone is doing wholesale.
Wow.
Selling to game shops and people who want to carry the product and then resell it. So he's obviously has a pretty strong following, which was really cool.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Y'all have to show some pictures and let us know how that goes. That's exciting. Well, congrats on your Kickstarter funding. Just don't forget, maybe in October, you're like, oh yeah, forgot about that.
Don't go out and buy them.
Yeah. Just don't, like, can you double fund a Kickstarter? You open up a different account, like, oh man.
I'm sure he wouldn't mind.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, well, with that last segment, that will wrap our show for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Medicae Steve. I appreciate your time and your attention and your delicious cocktail recipe.
Absolutely.
Thank you to this Yeehaw beer that I drank, which is the proud sponsor of this show. Not really. It's just I drank it.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, right. Not likely. But it was delicious. Thank you, Steve. I am the Warboss, and we'll see all of you next time on the next episode of Dad Hammer. Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, David.